What I want you to pay attention to as I go through the points that we have here, and there's 4 different excerpts that I'm pulling out. You're going to see highlighted in yellow are things that the United States has to do. Highlighted in gray are things that both sides have to do. And then highlighted in blue is what the Iranian side has to do. 11 points. Only 2 of them are stuff that Iran has to do. And look how minor and tepid those things are compared to the much weightier things that we have to do. This is almost nothing but a surrender document. You can't put lipstick on this pig, man. It's that bad. Let's start taking a look at it. First of all, point number 1, the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States, together with their allies in the current war, declare upon the signing of this memorandum. And by the way, there's that headline that we see this morning. This is what's been leaked out from the Western side. The signing of this MOU, an immediate and permanent end to the war on all fronts, including Lebanon. And that is one of the key. That's why both Rebecca Heinrichs and Mark Levin were especially going crazy because, you know, they prioritize Israeli interest above that of the United States. And by saying that we have to get this off of Lebanon, and we're going to be talking about this with Doug McGregor this afternoon, by the way, at noon. Do not miss that show, folks. Do not miss that one because he's going to be talking about a lot of stuff about Netanyahu in particular. But you can just imagine, without even looking at anything, that for Iran and Israel to be in the midst of a conflict with troops on the ground in southern Lebanon and with the battle plan that's not even close to being finished in Beirut, just asking them to stop and walk away is just almost impossible to imagine inside of Israel. And so it's something they're going to have to try to figure out. But here's the thing here. Let me show you here. This is President Trump talking about the issue with Israel. Gary, play that one here. No, I'm sorry. No, let's go with the one that says keen doubts, number the second key.
Danny, we played that one.
Did we play that one already? All right. Sorry, I got these confused here. Here's the one for President Trump. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Here's President Trump talking about Hezbollah.
Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and they're not all Hezbollah, that I can tell you. And I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. Because to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of doing it.
Oh, yeah, sure. You know what, Syria, how about you go to war with Hezbollah? Israel, you just move south. No problem. I mean, come on, folks. That is just completely detached from any kind of reality. If you're a pro-Israeli person, if you're an Israeli person, I can see why that would make you angry, because basically Trump is saying, just walk away. We're not going to do that in the middle of a war. That is going to be incredibly difficult, if not outright impossible. But to then switch the gears and say, and it would even be cool if another country just come in and I think that when the camera zoomed out, if I may be getting these two interviews interconnected here, but he was also talking, President Trump, otherwise, with al-Shura, the leader of Syria, sitting right next to him. I don't remember if it was that one or not, but he was earlier. But can you imagine al-Shura going, wait, hang on. What? You want me to go to war with Hezbollah? There's no way that they're going to do that. I mean, that number one, they don't have the military capacity, but why in the world would they want to just go help out Israel and fight the battle for them so Israel can go home? That is detached from reality. The fact that you're saying that out loud and it's like you actually think you're going to do that is a real problem. Let's go back, because there's a lot more. The Islamic Republic of Iran, this is point number 3, and the United States undertake to negotiate and reach a final agreement with a maximum period of 60 days. So that's the issue there, is that this is setting up a 60-day period to get to the difficult issues here. Immediately upon signing this MOU, the United States will lift the blockade against Iran and restore traffic within a maximum of 30 days to its capacity. The United States will also undertake to withdraw its forces from the surrounding areas within 30 days after the final agreement. So we have to, this is why I say that this is getting into a surrender document, because you're going to say that up front, or at least within 30 days of an agreement signed. So as we're in phase 2, as we're getting to the process of trying to get to phase 2 to negotiate that stuff, we have to lift our blockade so all the Iranian oil can come out. Of course, that the Iranian side will also drop its side, and that means all the Arab oil will come out that they've been blocking in there. So that's good on the one hand, but this requires us to say everything that we've been doing, all this. Remember, we've shown you this a few times. President Trump at the beginning said that the IRGC had to surrender or face certain death, and that we were going to get rid of, there was going to be regime change. He said we had regime change. We won this war. Remember all that stuff at the beginning? And now here we are saying, and as a result, if we even get to phase 2, we're going to withdraw from the area. That is why so many people say this is a surrender document, because it is. You can put whatever title you want on it. You can spin the name however you want to, but the fundamentals, if they're enacted, definitely record different result in a military defeat. Let that sink in for a second. Let's continue on. And here's the next term. Upon signing this memorandum of understanding, the Islamic Republic of Iran will immediately take steps to ensure that the movement of the merchant ships from the Persian Gulf through the Gulf of Oman and vice versa is resumed within 30 days. So the same 30-day period that our blockade has to stop, their blockade also stops. Then number 6, the United States undertakes, together with its regional partners, this is a big one, to create a comprehensive plan agreed upon by both parties for the rehabilitation and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran, while ensuring financing of $300 billion. And that is a bitter pill, because that harkens back to World War I negotiated in, where the Germans were saddled with war reparations. Only the defeated side ever pays war reparations. And if President Trump has signed on to that, if that is true, then that is the biggest admission of military defeat, strategic defeat, that you can get your head around. And that is something that Jack Keane also recognized. And Gary, play this one, Keane Hannity. Here's what he was talking on Hannity last night about that topic.
The funding is real. There's a $300 billion investment fund. Who cares where the money comes from? If it doesn't come from the United States, I get that. Of course it shouldn't. But it shouldn't come from anybody. When we recovered Germany and Japan, the Nazis weren't in charge. The Japanese imperialists weren't in charge. Here, the Iranians are in charge. The killers and thugs are still in charge. We don't give them that money, because what are they going to do with it? They're going to recover everything we've taken away from them. Who cares whether it's coming from the Arabs, from the Qataris, or whatever? They don't get it. They shouldn't get any of it. That's just the reality of it. They're going to take that money and recover everything. And you know that, Sean. You know that you can't trust these people.
I don't trust the Iranians. I'm a trust but verify guy. But I heard the vice president say they don't get anything unless they do those things. They get nothing until they do something. It's not our money. And they never signed off, he said, on any deal for Qatar to give them a penny. He said they would open the door if Arab countries want to invest down the road, but that's if they start fulfilling the promises that they're talking about having committed to.
Okay, man. Okay, yeah, that's not war reparations, man. No, this is just later on. They can invest in the rehabilitation of Iran. So just to be crystal clear here, what he just said there, and make sure you don't miss this. He's trying to put lipstick on a pig, but it's more like a carcass now. But for any Gulf country to invest in Iran, that means that the side that attacked you and that you fired back on, you're going to rebuild them. And they have the leverage to compel compliance by whatever means, by whatever terms you want to put, to have $300 billion from the side that was hit, given back to the side that did the hitting. And that's because, obviously, we lit the fire. We hit them first, and then they replied back, just like I showed you in the months ahead of this war, the weeks especially. This is what the Iranians were saying that they would do, and they did exactly what they said they would do. And now then, if there's going to be requirements, because obviously they were hit profoundly. I think the last tally I saw was somewhere around 20,000 targets by the combined allied forces. And that's I think some of them happened from some of the GCC countries. I believe the UAE actually participated in some of this, as well as Israel and the United States. So 20,000 targets were hit in Iran. So obviously they have been just devastated on the surface, especially if their economy. So they're saying, hey, we're not going to end this unless we get some reparations. And so you can call it investment, you can call it whatever you want, but that's a requirement for the deal. And if they don't get that, then there's no deal. Now, you may recall when we had Professor Morandi on right after this announcement that President Trump, that there had been an MOU agreed to, he still listed off again a number of things that have to happen, and one of which was the exchange of money. And in fact, speaking of money, there was another, that's saying it's this one here. There's another one in there that's talking about some money. We'll get to that in a second. The United States, is back to number 7, commits to ending on a schedule to be agreed upon as part of the final agreement all types of sanctions currently facing the Islamic Republic of Iran, including the resolutions of the United Nations Security Council and the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and all unilateral U.S. sanctions, both primary and secondary. That's another, wow, are you kidding me? All the sanctions, the UNSC rules against the Iranian side, all that has to be abrogated and gone off the board. If nothing else was in this term except for that, that is a major, major win for Iran. It's hard to overstate how big that is. That might even be bigger than the $300 billion, because I doubt that ever happens. I doubt that materializes. There's about a 10% chance. It's not zero. 10% is still, something on the, but there's so many headwinds against that. It would surprise me if it did, but man, if it included these sanctions relief and all the UNSC resolutions taken off the books, that would be incredible. And that would drive all of these people like Mark Thiessen, Jack Keane, Rebecca Heinrichs, all these folks, Keith Kellogg, you name them, their hair would just get on fire. Maybe their heads would explode. I don't know. But they just could not comprehend that we went to war with Iran and came out with them stronger. Because understand this, even aside from the physical realm, from the financial realm, man, if they come out of this and they're in a position to where all the UNSC rules are off, all the sanctions are off, and their regime is still in control, and the IRGC still exists, and they still have a Navy, even though 158 ships were sunk, but the ships that matter, the ones that can control the strait, they're still very much intact. And that their long-range missiles are still very much intact. In fact, they're probably going to be bigger here shortly because they're still producing underground. The long-range drones continue to be a problem. The shorter-range drones are now increasingly a problem as well. Everywhere you want to look, they are militarily, economically, and geopolitically much stronger than before. And I promise you, after the dust settles, if any version of this comes to pass, or if Iran just outlasts us and we try to go back and fight again and prove the same thing would happen again if we did it a second time, their value and their respect around the world will just go through the roof, and ours will go through the basement. That is what we have won by starting a war we should never have fought. Man, we have to keep that up front here. This is now manifesting before your eyes the cost of doing something foolish, the cost of ignoring reality. That cost isn't finished. Let me go back. There's still more to share. Here's another blue one here. The Islamic Republic of Iran reiterates that it will never produce a nuclear weapon. Yeah, you think? They've only said that since 2003 forward, all the way through this period, all during the 2025 period, when negotiations that we used as cover for an attack, all during negotiations for this period, which we used as cover to attack. And ever since that time, they have still said they are not seeking a nuclear weapon. So that's like saying, listen, I need you to declare that you're holding a yellow highlighter. Okay, I declare I'm holding a yellow highlighter. Costs literally nothing. So I have that marked listed as a blue. That's one of the two major things that Iran is required to do. And yet that's not even a thing, because they've already done that. So that literally cost them nothing. They can declare it whatever they want to all day long. That's one of the few ones on here. But here's a couple of other bigger ones. Here's one. This is in gray. So this is what both sides are expected to do. Number 9, the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States agree that, pending a final agreement, they will maintain the status quo, which means until even after it's signed, a final agreement. That means, after the 60-day period, when they get to the final stuff, Iran will maintain the status quo in its nuclear program, and the United States will not impose any new sanctions on Iran or strengthen its forces in the region. So we're not going to send any more troops, and they're not going to change the status quo. But so that's gray, but it's actually, I could have put that as yellow, because that requires the United States not to put any new sanctions on Iran And for Iran, they can continue doing what they want. So that's actually, again, a thing in the that's only in the yellow category. But since they're both included, I had to put that. But even that one is really anti and contrary to what we would want. It gets worse. Number 10, the United States undertakes that immediately after the signing of this MOU and until the date of the lifting of sanctions, the United States Treasury Department will issue waivers for exports of Iranian crude oil, petrochemical products, and their derivatives, and all related services, including banking, insurance, transportation, and the like. Again, the United States undertakes that immediately after the signing. So even though some of the sanctions we won't impose any new ones, and some won't come off until the final thing, but immediately on the energy infrastructure. This is one of the things Professor Morandi kept telling us over and over, and there it is. If this is the actual one that's leaked again by people friendly with the administration. So that is a major thing that would come up front. Then here's the last one I'm talking about, money. The United States undertakes that in light of the progress of negotiations toward a final agreement, frozen or restricted funds and assets of the Islamic Republic of Iran will be released and made fully available. So you remember, I think it was the day before yesterday, we showed you Vice President Vance was asked that question if it's in there, and he says, no, I have not seen anywhere in the text $24 billion. Well, now you can see, because in the text here, if this is the genuine text, there's no number here of 24 billion, but it does say that their frozen funds will be released and made fully available. So Professor Moradi says his understanding would be somewhere between 10 and 12 billion, and then the rest would come later. So there would be some process about that would go on. But again, just like with sanctions relief up front, money up front, because that is what Iran has been telling everybody who would listen repetitively are necessary steps up front, because we have destroyed trust, because we've lied so many times about what our intentions were. So now then they have to get something in their hand before they'll take the next step. Now, the good news is, from our side, they apparently still will take multiple steps. If they get stuff up front, then they'll continue to take other steps. And if getting a deal that ended the nuclear program to our satisfaction somehow, apparently Iran is willing to do that. They are willing to negotiate down that path, as long as they. And I didn't see anything in there about this part. One of the differences is the Iranian side said their deal said that the U.S. Or that they would still retain control of the Strait of Hormuz. That was one of the top points in that one. This one didn't say anything about control of the Strait of Hormuz. So that remains to be seen here. That's one of the few really major differences between the Iranian 14 point that was leaked and the U.S. 11 point that was released. That's something else that President Trump has to explain. But just a couple of finding parts here. Listen, nothing in this at all about the proxies. Nothing in this about any kind of withdrawal from any other areas for the Iranian side. So taken all together, this is like 90% in the direction of what the Iranians want, and 10%, and even that 10% is just kind of pathetic, of having the Iranian side agree to what they already said. Again, the whole issue of the Strait of Hormuz, we'll have to see how that's going to work out here. But let me just tell you, let me be just another crystal clear situation here. If the terms that President Trump will read to the press, as he said a minute ago, if they are not synonymous, identical, letter for letter, what the Iranian side says, this is what we've signed, then there's going to be a problem. So that's why I say that whenever Trump releases this, there's going to be fireworks, because either all these folks I just showed you and many more on the American side are going to go crazy if any version of those, especially all those yellow highlights we had, if those turn out to be in the document, people are going to say, you've lost your mind. His supporters, they're going to say, you've lost your mind. You surrendered to Iran. And if they're not in there, then the Iranian side is going to say, you've lost your mind. That's not what you signed. And yet again, you have violated diplomatic normality while you lied to us. And so this is not what we agreed to. Therefore, the war continues. And the Iranian side probably will not reinitiate it, but they'll retain their control of their blockade, of their side of the blockade, and the economic difficulties for the United States will continue to compound. And then what? Then President Trump will be in a position, then what do you do? Do you go back and submit again? Do you finally agree to those things? Do you listen to the Mark Teesons and to the Jack Keens and go back to active fighting to deepen the cost to us? You see, he has painted himself into an unbelievable circle here. He just can't get out of it because he in pushing to get this deal on his birthday because he wanted to celebrate. And you remember that True Social I put up there about how he was the most greatest president ever. Nobody had gotten this. Only he could do it. And he's amazing. Self-congratulatory stuff, right? He said that on the day of his birthday because he wanted all that. Well, the cost to get that is that now then you got to pony up, man. You can't just keep saying stuff like this before. And of course, many people in the United States are saying, why are you not putting out the information at all? If you're telling us that there's a deal, if you're telling us that everything is agreed to, if you're telling us the signing ceremony is coming up on Friday, there's no reason not to give this. You should be bragging about it. You should be saying, here's the terms that I have. This is what we're going to agree to, because he's telling us over and over how great it is for America. And it's going to recast the Middle East and it's going to be greater going forward and all this stuff. Okay, then put out the information. But he's not. And I think you see why he's not, because I think that there's a reason why that list of terms has been leaked out, because there are those who despise them in the administration that are close to him, and they want it to come out to make it look as bad as possible so he doesn't sign it on Friday. I think that's the most likely scenario there. We've certainly seen a lot of that here in Washington, D.C. in the last few years, and especially since Trump has been back in office here, both with intelligence, with military, and now here in this diplomatic cable. So we'll see how it's going to work out. But listen, there's a whole lot more to talk about here. That's we're gonna leave it off with you that. But we're gonna have Doug McGregor back at noon today, and we're gonna look at a little bit more detail on the Israeli side of this. And if you think people's heads are blowing up in Washington, wait till you see what's coming out of the middle, out of Israel itself, especially out of Benjamin Netanyahu and some of his supporters. And then you're going to get Doug's take on all this. And I promise you, especially militarily and diplomatically, as well as politically, he's going to have all the things to cover there. So we'll see you then at noon on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.
You know, I don't try to talk you into buying gold or tell you how to run your stock portfolio, but there is a way you can help us. Subscribe, hit that like button, and share this with somebody you love.